Okay, day 2. You ready? Here we go. Day 2. Day 2 is about sacrifice, or starting to be about sacrifice. There's quite a bit, because obviously I desire mercy, not sacrifice. I got 2 kind of sections in the book. 2 weeks on sacrifice, 2 weeks on mercy. That is how I do. So today, I'm not going to read because it's a longer day. It's got 1 page, 2 page, 3 page, and 1/8 of a page. So, like I said before, get the book. It's on Amazon. I Desire Mercy, Not Sacrifice by Mikie Spencer. You know you want it. Okay. So, it's easy if we wanted to just say, I desire mercy, not sacrifice, and look at the sacrificial stuff and see how the Pharisees did their sacrifices and say, well, that's all it was God doesn't care about sacrifices anymore. And we could put in duties where it says sacrifices and kind of make it modern. But there's a whole bunch more, because really the sacrificial system has lots to it, and a lot of modern day Christians kind of clump all the sacrifices together. But there was actually quite a few things, and this book will go through them all. Today we'll do the peace offering, or partial stuff about the peace offering. But just so you know, don't clump things together. Just don't. Okay, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so first we go back to the story in Genesis 22 of Abraham and Isaac with the ram caught in the thicket, and how that portrays Jesus, of course, kind of a duh, but that's kind of the clearest place to see Jesus in a Old Testament story, and get that. And then I take you to Isaiah 56, 6 through 7, to try to see Jesus through that passage. Okay, I will just read that part. I will also bless the foreigners who commit themselves to the Lord, who serve him and love his name, who worship him and do not desecrate the Sabbath day of rest, and who hold fast to my covenant. I will bring them to my holy mountain of Jerusalem and will fill them with joy in my house of prayer. I will accept their burnt offerings and sacrifices, because my temple will be called a house of prayer for all the nations. Okay, so holding fast to his covenant. Well, we can kind of see that easily, because as New Testament believers, we have the new covenant in Christ's blood from the cross and stuff, and we definitely hold fast to that. It's like our only hope, right? So you can see that part. But how do we look at him through accepting our burnt offerings and sacrifices? Well, I'm glad you asked. So I go back and look at the Old Testament sacrificial system. These things, we look at the stories like Daniel in the lion's den, or David and Goliath, or, pick your favorite story. We look at those and glean all kinds of truth all the time. But these are stories about people. And I'm not saying that there's not something to be gleaned there, because definitely there is. But the law was written by God through Moses, like straight up, here you go, dude. This is the law. And somehow we are like, well, no, there's nothing to be gleaned there. I know I'm not speaking for everybody. There are a lot of people who look at the law and glean plenty. I'm just saying, let's do that some more, because these are, straight from God stuff. So I'm gonna flip the page. Obviously, I'm skipping a lot, so get the book. I'm not skipping a ton. I'm not reading it word for word, because I don't want to waste your time. Okay, and there's a typo. I gotta fix some of these typos. They're not like full-on word typos. They're like ust for must, because we had to piece some stuff, and then anyway, didn't see that. Okay, God's requirement with every Old Testament story. Christ is there. Yes, Christ is there. Okay, so just like I mentioned the Abraham and Isaac story, and then the Isaiah thing, and there's tons and tons more. So I give you a little section here to find your own. because as I'm writing this, I know it's got a theme, but it's also about teaching Bible study. And one way, of course, is to look through the Old Testament and try to find Jesus. So you have a little section to look through the Old Testament and find Jesus. Okay, so after you've picked that story, that is your assignment for today, by the way. Then I go into the peace offering. Okay, first, they'd select the animal without defect, and it would come from the herd or the flock, so cow or sheep, goat. You'd bring the animal to the doorway of the tent of meeting, where you would put your hand on its head and slaughter it. Fun. If you haven't watched the movie Temple Grandin, watch that. That is how all things should be done. Lord, I pray, maybe there will be a shift in the sacrificial stuff for animals that we eat. Yes, please. Do it. Okay. Hi, baby. How are you today? Mikie cat. Meow. You want to say hi? Meow. She doesn't actually get on laps because she's partially feral. So to say come on up and say hi to you guys would not actually happen. She'll just stand down there on the floor and say meow. Okay. So the priest would collect the blood and sprinkle it all around the altar, and the animal would be skinned and cut into specific pieces. And the pieces had significant meaning, like the life being in the blood. And up on this page, I have you look at how do you see Jesus in the life being in the blood. It's kind of self-explanatory, but go with it. And then there's other parts, like the right thigh and the breast go to the priest. And of course, the breast has to do with your heart, and the thigh has to do with strength. So it was a strengthening and a renewing their love for God, because they're priests and they need that. And not to minimize people who weren't priests, and to definitely add to that we are all priests now, because God says now in the new covenant, everybody's priests, everybody's ambassadors, all the things that they were, we are, right? Okay, so then I have you pick another portion part of the sacrifice and write about how you see it through Jesus. Okay. Oh, even spiritual truths about the leftovers. So this really kind of goes back to the manna in the wilderness. That story is in Exodus 16, 14 through 20. Because just like how the manna would rot the day later, the sacrificial system has you had to eat on the day of the sacrifice or the day after. Eating the third day would have serious consequences, and you can find that stuff in Leviticus 19, 5 through 8. Yeah, so just like their daily bread, the manna in the wilderness is daily, our sacrifices and offerings are basically the same. The sacrifice you made 3 years ago, 3 days ago, all that stuff, it's done. It's over. You got to keep up. God is doing a new thing, and we need to do new things as well. And now she's scratching at the carpet. I don't know if you can hear that. Okay. Our daily bread. Yeah, I already said that. On top of that, you just couldn't slaughter a cow like yourself. You had to bring it to the tabernacle. That's in Leviticus 17, 3 through 4. Any meat that was slaughtered had to be offered to God as a sacrifice. Any blood that was shed as part of a sacrifice. Thus, any meat that was eaten, at least from cattle, had to be that was first offered to God as part of a sacrifice at the tent of meeting. So here you see, like, it was important to bring the sacrifice to the tent of meeting. And I take just a minute here to say, look at that, even to think of church. Why is it important that we bring our sacrifice to the local church, to our tent of meeting? To drive this point home that it actually is important about places, I take you to Joshua 22, where some of the tribes thought it would be okay to build an altar closer to home. You can read the whole story. Verses 11-12 is this part. And when the Israelites heard that they had built an altar on the border of Canaan at Gililoth, near the Jordan on the Israelite side, the whole assembly of Israel gathered at Shiloh to go to war against them. In verse 29, the wayward tribes repented. Far be it from us to rebel against the Lord and turn away from him today, building an altar for burnt offerings, grain offerings, and sacrifices other than the altar of the Lord that stands at his tabernacle. And I know now that we do not have to go all the way to Jerusalem to do things, but it is important to say you just can't willy-nilly do stuff. If God says, hey, I want you to continue meeting together until I come back, continue meeting together until he comes back. So I have you write your first thoughts about why the local church is an important place to bring your sacrifices. And that's the end. Ta-da! And the reason I have it as your first thoughts is because in another day we'll do your second thoughts. So there was 2 assignments today, and that was to find Jesus in an Old Testament story of your own and to think of, oh no, there was 3. The life is in the blood, another portion of the sacrifice and what you see in that, another part of seeing Jesus, and then why is the local church important? Okay, so God bless. See you later.